As we are now within days of the Seattle expansion draft, I thought it would be rather fun and interesting to take a look at a handful of players to start that Ron Francis could select. Without going into each and every team just yet, and a full roster, in order to better and more distinctly give attention to the prospective core, or at least a small portion of it, I'm going to go over 5 big names that could be in a Kraken uniform here shortly. And with that, here's an appetizer, or rather a mini mock draft. Since working his way up to the NHL undrafted, Jordon has been a staple within Calgary's organization for quite some time. As a Norris Trophy recipient of 2019, has provided leadership, stability, and has been extremely involved as well outside of the rink with community service. Therefore, as valuable as the captain has been for the club, it's looking to be more than likely that the Kraken are going to decide to take number 5 regardless, as the Flames will probably be taking the option for protecting 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goalie, who we all know will be Jacob Markstrom due to his no-movement clause. TSN scouting director Craig Button has also corroborated this and believes that Jordon will be exposed so that Noah Hannafin, Chris Tanev, and Rasmus Andersson aren't exposed themselves. And this move would not only help the team inch closer to the $48.9 million minimum that they must spend at the draft, but would also bring in some added veteran leadership, which could prove very valuable. Jordon could also prove to be useful financially, as he only has 1 more year remaining on his contract that carries a $6.7 million cap hit. Even though he's no longer in his prime, he would still be a short-term solution for the first pairing on the left side, who could eat minutes and contribute offensively when need be. Even though, similarly to Jordon, James Van Riemsdyk may seem like a large expense to take out, at $7 million initially, against the cap. Despite this though, the team is going to probably prefer to have a lone goal scorer to insert into the top pairing if at all possible. And for Van Riemsdyk, who is coming off of a very productive season after notching 43 points with 17 goals, 28 assists, the forward not only tied the lead in team scoring, but also impressively had 10 goals alone on the man advantage, which was the 5th most league-wide. Another fact that points to his value is that number 25 accomplished that while only averaging 16 minutes per game last season. Despite Jacob Voracek being another potential target, if I'm choosing between the two who will be roughly the same price next season, Van Riemsdyk seems like the better option, considering that Francis is probably going to have an easier go of it finding a decent playmaker or pass-first type of player. But aside from maybe Phil Kessel being available, there's not going to be many players who are natural goal scorers available to choose from. Another potential selling point here for Seattle is that according to an article by NBC Sports Philadelphia that I'll link below, Dave Hackstall actually had a large hand in persuading the forward to return to Philly. I think the goaltending position will be the most interesting one to try and predict, because we're seeing big names such as Ben Bishop and Braden Holtby surface as potential choices for Seattle, and therefore I think the biggest test for Francis will be deciding on the dynamic that he wants to have, how much he wants to pay, and how long he's wanting to keep the tandem together. Because if he were to go after Bishop per se, who would be on the more expensive side, it would be a large gamble to take given his injury history. The same could be said of Braden Holtby, who had the worst season of his career based on goals against average, as he finished with a below .900 save percentage. And yes, you could say for Holtby it could have been very circumstantial, but for me personally, if I was selecting a netminder in this situation, I'd be trying to get a goalie with experience who's coming off a decent season at a modest price. And looking at Talbot's numbers, as he really exceeded my expectations personally, if I'm being honest, as he finished with a .915 save percentage and a 2.63 goals against average. Therefore, even though Vegas decided to initially take a top caliber goalie in Marc-Andre Fleury, selecting Talbot wouldn't break the bank and wouldn't call for a long-term commitment, as his deal expires next offseason. Probably the player who has had the roughest go of it here lately on this list is Jason Zucker. As a former 30-goal scorer who was brought to the Berg with high expectation, hasn't quite panned out in the Steel City as the Penguins would have hoped, as the forward was only able to record 30 points in 53 games played since being acquired by Pittsburgh over the deadline last year. Therefore, knowing that this could have just been a bad fit for number 16, considering the fact that he had over an 18% shooting average at the time that he was traded from Minnesota, picking up Zucker could prove to pay off given the change of scenery. And And being a Pens fan myself, after being both to Pittsburgh and Seattle, well, the scenery would definitely be more enticing comparatively in Seattle. Anyways, Zucker, who is comfortable playing on either wing, would bring a 4-time 20-goal scorer pedigree. Also, while it may be a tough bullet to bite for the Pens letting Zucker go given what they gave up to get him, for Hextall, this could be an easy way to shed some needed cap space in order to make some critical moves. Similarly to Cam Talbot, if Francis did decide to select Allen, because we all know the Canadiens are going to protect Carey Price, then it would be a similar short-term commitment contract-wise, as Allen, who carries a similar cap hit of $2.8 million, could potentially balance out well with Talbot. Both netminders have the experience of being the number one in net, one is technically a Stanley Cup champion, and are both well seasoned at this point in time. Allen, who backed up Price and stepped in while his goalie partner suffered injuries, had a decent campaign last season with a 2.68 goals against average and a .907 save percentage. Therefore, while only having to pay out $6.5 million for the pair in net, Seattle would be in a good position not only financially but futuristically, as while they figure out what kind of team they are and their identity, they won't have to worry about being in a position where they could get burned if one of the selected attendees for some reason doesn't work out for them, as Khudobin and Bishop both have longer deals. Because as much as track record is a good indication of how a goalie is going to be statistically, let's be real here and say that it can be the most difficult position in the NHL to predict. I hope you all enjoyed this. If you did, want a longer full version, let me know in the comments below.